Darkness is nothing to fear. In our darkest moments, we learn who we are. Every time we grab jump, we put your faith in technology to carry you through the void, to slip you past those creatures lying in wait, reaching you from the space between realities. DarkStar was forged in that space between worlds, in that void between realities. Hello everyone, Wicked Gaming back again, this time to show you everything I know about DarkStar. Let's begin. So first, as you can see behind me, all of the new landing pads provided by DarkStar float in the sky. They're easily placeable. There are 5 variations. Let's go up and see this one. I just use the teleport button that I placed on the ground. It brings me up to this pad. Right across from me is a button to summon my crew. Any crew assigned to this outpost will be summoned up here to that pad anytime I click this button. Now, by default, it does not include robots assigned to this outpost. You can enable that in the gameplay options provided by DarkStar, so that when you press this button, it summons all humans and robots if you so choose. But by default, this summons humans only. All of the landing pads provided by DarkStar have this control deck. The bottom layer is all crafting and resource purchase stations, information kiosks, things of that nature, including a nav terminal, beds, and benches to sit on. It also includes many NPC markers to give your crew animations while they're standing around, which they will choose to use at random. The upper layer of the control deck is comprised of crew console stations and the shipbuilding interface. The shipbuilding interface has filters where you can turn on and off specific vendors, and you can also turn on and off non-vendor specific classifications of different items. Now these here work on all vanilla item classification. They do not affect the weapons, shields, reactors, etc. provided by DarkStar. That is all controlled by the DarkStar filter. So if you want to build this deck and only include DarkStar parts, you would click the DarkStar button. Full details on how to use this system can be found on this slate, which cannot be picked up but can be read anytime you are at one of these flight decks. In addition, the changelog can also be read here at any time. All future updates will receive an update to this changelog slate, which will be available for you at all of these flight decks at all times. Interacting with this will bring up the menu to modify, build your ship, summon it up to your flight deck, or whatever the case may be. Included on this control deck are also various mission boards and bounty clearance terminals. If you have used DarkStar Astrodynamics in the past, you will recognize some of these features. The included Trade Authority kiosks share inventory across your outpost. You can place up to 5 additional ones at your outpost, but they will all share the same inventory. The same is said for the DarkStar Services Terminal. Now you may have noticed in the top right of my screen that there are a lot of credits on this terminal. That is because this character is level 328. The credit availability scales based on your level. The basic level will be 10,000 credits. It will increase from there the higher level you are. Available at this DarkStar Services Terminal is also any Starborn spacesuits you have unlocked through trips through New Game Plus. This character has been through New Game Plus more than 50 times, so she has the Mark 50 Starborn armor. All of this armor is available to you if you have Starborn armor scaling enabled. It is enabled by default. When you go through the Unity, you will be issued whichever suit is appropriate to that trip through the Unity. The suit that is chosen, the graphic that is based upon your rotation through the 10 trips. As you might be familiar, in the base game, when you go through your 10th New Game Plus, you are given a Venator suit of armor. Just prior to that, you are given the Avitus suit of armor, which means the Avitus suit of armor will always appear for you, whether it's the Mark 9 or the Mark 1, the Mark 9, the Mark whatever. It will always appear for you on the 9th trip through the Unity in that tier. So you will get it on trip 9, trip 19, 29, 39, 49. However, you don't have to be stuck with the Starborn armor you are given. You can come to any services terminal and buy a replacement suit at any time you choose. The next major feature is the crafting system. For those of you who are familiar with DarkStar manufacturing, not much has changed. You can craft apparel. You can enhance the apparel to turn it into Mark II suits of apparel. Once it is Mark II, it can be upgraded in quality, and you can apply legendary effects in your lining of choice. If it is a Mark 0 or a vanilla piece of apparel, it is identical to what you could find elsewhere in the rest of the game. This just allows you to craft it so that you can make use of it. The armor crafting also produces exactly what is in the base game. From there, you can take armor you have crafted, or looted, or purchased, or been awarded through a quest, and you can upgrade it to enhanced. Once it is enhanced, it is a Mark II piece of armor, has the exact same graphics, and from there, you can then upgrade the quality, upgrade the linings, if it is appropriate to that piece of armor, change the boost pack, do your standard armor attachments, and apply legendary effects. Similar system exists for weapons, where you can craft your weapons from scratch, although there are limitations I will get to in a moment. You can enhance looted, crafted, awarded, purchased weapons into Mark II. Mark II weapons have a slight damage increase over their vanilla counterparts. They are also fully customizable, and if you are dealing with a weapon that is energy, electromagnetic, or particle beam, that is where that weapon stops its upgrade path. If it is a ballistic weapon, you can turn it into a Mark III weapon at the Vial Weapon Crafting Station. That process converts your ballistic weapon into a particle beam weapon, which you can then continue to upgrade here at the weapon station at your leisure. For vial weapons, they require special ammo. All ammo crafting in the base game has moved to this bench, including primers. You can also craft, once you've done the research, volatile ammo to use Mark III weapons. Weapon crafting has a special limitation. That is because of the way that the game spawns those weapons into the game. Once you craft an item, it is effectively following the same process that the game would use to spawn a weapon out in the open world. So, to that end, there stands the chance that if I had completely unlocked weapon crafting, a level 1 character could find one of these terminals, craft a weapon, and be randomly handed by the game a relic quality weapon, which would be an exploit. It would be an unfair advantage that would, honestly, in my experience, reduce their gameplay enjoyment. It would make the game too easy too early on. So, to lock that down, you must acquire the level required to wield a relic quality of any given weapon in order to be able to craft the vanilla version. The full list of when weapons go relic is available here in this terminal under Manufacturing, Weapon crafting unlocks, and it will tell you which level you have to be for which weapon to do what thing. Research is critical to the DarkStar manufacturing system, and that includes DarkStar itself. All research can be found under a single tab, the DarkStar tab. In here, you will see research or crafting techniques for helmets and armor to upgrade them. You will see research to unlock the different quality tiers. You will see research for every legendary in the game, including research for DarkStar proprietary legendaries. And finally, at the end, the vile or volatile crafting system research. If you pay attention to the right side of the screen, this shattering research to learn the shattering legendary requires a shattering codex. That is the one component to unlock this. Well, how do you get a shattering codex? You can get a shattering codex by pulling the codex off of any equipment that has shattering on it. So you go and you loot a weapon that has shattering, you put it in this chest, you click this button to activate this system. It will do its thing and process. It will inject the weapon without the legendary into the weapon output chest, and the codex into the codex chest. Any armor that is processing goes into the armor output. This chest and this system can process up to 25 pieces of armor and 25 weapons at a time. To show you how this works, I'm going to go purchase one of those Starborn suits of armor. And actually, I'll purchase 5. I'll come over here. Insert the pieces of armor I don't want. Click process. Wait a moment for it to do its thing. And it's complete. All of my legendary codexes are in the middle box. My empty suits of armor are in the right-hand box. I'll quickly deposit the armor out of my inventory to clear the weight. And now, in my resource list, I will have the codexes I just extracted. Once I have a codex, whether or not I have done the research, I can apply that codex to any piece of equipment. Or, if I haven't learned the research, I can come and learn how to craft that thing and consume the codex in the process. So for example, if I hadn't learned staggering and I just pulled staggering off of a piece of gear, I could come over and learn staggering, but I will no longer at that point have the codex in my inventory. It will be consumed by learning the research. Once I've done that though, I can come over to the legendary crafting bench and I can craft any of the legendaries I have learned how to craft. Some of these can be quite complex, some are fairly simple. It depends on the legendary in question. This Codex Processing Center has access to the legendary crafting system. It also has a quick reference to the resource crafting. This will also let you craft the legendary matrix, which is required component for legendary codex crafting, quantum harnesses, which are used by almost everything in DarkStar, and quantum rigs. Quantum rigs allow you to place things at your outpost. And finally, in the center is a convenient research bench. Now, one thing you might have noticed if you were a DarkStar user is that these benches have a weird X on the front of them. See the name? X DarkStar Weapon Enhancement. That X indicates that this bench is not usable by your crew and companions. If it was an O in square brackets, then it will be usable by your companions. I have an example of that out here. This is a companion and crew usable research bench. Now, the purpose behind this was twofold. One, custom crafting benches push you into third person, and then the vanilla bug is that they leave you in third person when you exit. Notice that I went back to first person. That is a gameplay option setting that you can turn on for DarkStar, that any X bench will force you back into first person when you exit. I mostly play in first person, so I keep that setting enabled. In addition, the X crafting stations are technically a two-piece system. There is the visual component that you see, which is just an activator, similar to this. Activators cannot be used by non-player characters. That is why your crew and companions can't use these. When you engage with this, it actually summons an invisible ammo crafting bench inside of this one and activates you into it. Now, that will bypass the majority of obstruction problems with crafting benches being placed on your flight deck. However, there are still occasions or certain locations in the game world that you may find where an obstruction may happen. That can't be prevented entirely, because to prevent it entirely, the invisible furniture needs to not actually exist, be summoned into existence when you click this activator, and then push you into it. I can do that, and then you won't ever be obstructed. You can even place things in front of them and pass through them and use them. The problem is, when I had it in that mode early in testing, while that part was great, the workbench itself did not link to your outpost inventory because it was not placed by you. Because of that, I kind of reverted that technique a bit to make it a little less locked down, so that these workbenches will see your outpost inventory. Now let's talk about the gameplay options. Included in your settings is a group of DarkStar general settings and DarkStar intercom controls. The DarkStar general settings start with a challenge level setting. Now, challenge level is a pretty interesting thing. At just for fun, the weakest, the DarkStar gives you a perk that aids you in your combats against any enemy NPCs which are above level 100. Every 50 levels, that perk increases in value, making it easier and easier to fight those targets which might be too hard for you. However, you will not get additional loot, such as Mark II and Mark III weapons. And the NPCs will have their default combat styles. At DarkStar level, the NPCs will have potentially Mark II weapons added to their inventories. And not just added to their inventories, but placed in their hands with the potential for them to have none to 1 to 2 to 3 legendaries applied. This can make those enemies very hard to surpass. And then finally, Punish Me. Punish Me gives an additional random chance that an enemy might get a Mark III weapon, a particle beam version of a ballistic weapon. These are the most powerful weapons offered in DarkStar, and now your enemies can wield them too. In addition, in Punish Me, every NPC you encounter will be given an elite combat style that will increase their aggressiveness, increase their tendencies to push and flank you, increase their tendencies to run and bash into you and blow past you, to try and do attacks from behind if they are a melee character, and even for officer and legendary tier enemies, increase their chances to use their boost pack to get better angles on you. You have been warned. Enhanced Spacesuit Auto Hide was necessary to add into DarkStar due to the atmospheric generation effects of my landing pads. The Enhanced Spacesuit Auto Hide is relatively similar in its output to one of the original mods named Smarter Spacesuit Autohide, which is no longer supported. But it had to be done in a different way in DarkStar and function at a higher level. Because of that, I had to roll the desired features of that other mod into this mod in a new way to make that feature set viable. And also to kind of showcase the fact that you're standing in a breathable atmosphere on a landing pad that DarkStar provides, no matter what world you're on. Next is the Starborn armor scaling. If you disable this, you will only receive the vanilla Starborn armor when you pass through into New Game Plus. Otherwise, you will receive a new up-leveled suit of armor from NG1 through NG50 with this mod. Now, this armor is scaled using the same scaling algorithm that Bethesda used on the NG1 through NG10 armor. So the power increase from new game to new game is relatively along the same curve. Workbench first person fix only affects the X workbenches. This will cause you to force you back into first person when you exit any one of the X benches if you have this enabled. Summon robots with crew on pads affects that crew summon button and makes it so that humans and robots will be summoned to the pad when you have this enabled. This may be useful to enable now and again, especially if you're looking to destroy your outpost and move on. Summon your robots to the pad so that you can delete the robots to then clear your outpost. However, for standard operation, it was decided that this should be off because in most cases, you really just want your crew there with you and not the robots that are supposed to be guarding your base from the ground. Codex machine play processing sound. If this is on, you will hear the machine processing sound while it is in operation. If it is off, you will just continue to receive the text alerts only. The same is true for the completion sound. If this is on, you will hear the completion sound. If it is off, you will only see the text alert. The DarkStar intercom controls is a carryover from one of my first mods back in the Nexus days, February of 2024, called Sweet Sound of Silence. With this feature set, you can disable the audio portion of different types of ship chatter. Now, I will say that while some users do use it, I do not recommend using local with player and remote with player. I do not recommend you turn those off. These are quest interactions and vending interactions. If you have those disabled, you may miss out on some details of the quest or the vending operation that you are in. You will still see the subtitles if you have those enabled, but the audio will go away. I do, by default on my end, I always turn off local without player and remote combat. The reason is this is ship spam that I don't want to hear. The local without player is idle ship banter between your crewmates as you fly around that mostly is not needed or important to your mission and your operations. If you are a person that likes to hear those things as part of your immersion, leave this on. It also includes, though, all ship combat notifications from your crew, such as announcing when your enemy target has their grav drives disabled, and every other thing similar to that. Remote combat are things like free starships yelling at Crimson Fleet ships and vice versa. I disable that as well because I don't need to hear it. Now let's talk a little bit about the DarkStar terminal. For those of you who are new to the DarkStar systems, this may be where you live for hours and hours and hours. And that is unfortunately necessary simply because of the amount of things present within DarkStar. If you are new to DarkStar, you will want to at least skim through all of these sections and provide yourself with those mental registers that, hey, if I need to know more about grav drives, I can go to the terminal, hit astrodynamics, and grav drives and learn everything about them. Same thing for reactors, shields, ship weapons, including breakdown of the ship weapon naming conventions, and more. Additionally, I can claim ships in here. There's the DarkStar Interceptor, which comes in 5 different ranks. The first one is fairly weak comparatively and is available at level 45. You can read about when they are available here under the top level entry. And as you can see, the most powerful interceptor requires level 105 plus. The DarkStar Ravager, which I already own, comes in 10 tiers, starting at level 80 and New Game Plus 1. The final tier requires level 125 and New Game Plus 10. This is a very powerful ship. It is the one I fly, and without it, the game gets very hard very quickly. My piloting skills are not the best. I will freely admit that. DarkStar Manufacturing section breaks down how to use the Codex machine, what quantum rigs are, how to use them, the research and how to do it, including a section for your rewards for completing the research. So there are 2 major sections of things that are unlocked when you complete all DarkStar research. This is a reward for the effort put in to do this work. The first is the Force Assault equipment. You will gain access to Force Assault armor and helmet and a Force Assault blade, provided that you've done the research and have the required skills. Force Assault armor, the quality tiers unlock at 55 and keep going until level 130. The Mark steps upgrade at NG1, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. To have the most powerful suit of Force Assault armor, you must be level 130 at NG50 or beyond. These are very powerful suits of armor that have special effects not available in any other suit of armor. So far in DarkStar Manufacturing, everyone who has unlocked these suits of armor almost used this armor exclusively. And then the Force Assault Blade, which has similar quality tier unlocks, and it includes a Force Resonance modifier that can be installed at the weapon bench, which scales the power of the blade from NG1 to NG50. So yet again, you must be level 130 at NG50 and having completed all of the DarkStar research in order to have this blade at its maximum capabilities. To show you these items, I am wearing the DarkStar Force Assault Umbral variant that is assigned by this Umbral Assault mod at the end, and you can see that it is effectively Starborn armor without the rags. The helmet is a separate piece that can change its appearance individually. When you change the Umbral Assault portion of this armor at a weapon bench or a armor bench, it changes graphics. If you run the Forged Assault, that turns it into the brown armor. The Glitter Boy variant turns it into the shiny metal armor, and so on and so forth. The Force Assault blade itself has a very special feature that no other blades have. When I block, it casts Moonform. This is great to have on your hotbar, even if you don't plan on meleeing, for when you get into trouble. You can pop it, resist most incoming damage, trigger its built-in healing effects, and recover from the disastrous position you've put yourself in. it's great. Additionally, the damage of this blade keeps it competitive with the various weapons that you can craft throughout the game, with the exception of sniper rifles. But as you can see, the Evangard Relic Beowulf's Mark III, which is a top tier, maximum enchanted particle beam version of the Beowulf, has 1100 damage physical and 15 energy. And when we look at the Force Assault Blade, it's 1600 physical and 1100 energy. Basically the reverse. But this keeps this melee weapon in the same classification for when it can be used throughout the game, and keeps it viable in the end game. For those of you that like to melee, this is your weapon. So let's talk shipbuilding. For those that are familiar with DarkStar astrodynamics, this will be a rehash of things they already know. I apologize. However, there are some deviations and differences I wanted to point out for those of you that are experienced with it. First of all, is that the cargo and fuel systems require payloads for an Astrodynamics 3. This is a requirement to make them less cheaty. You have to earn your way into using them, but like normal, they do include flips so that you can change the graphics and usability and volume that they hold. For those of you that are new to DarkStar, it can seem overwhelming at first. There are a lot of weapons after all. But all of these are with a purpose. There are particle, ballistic, EM, energy, or laser weapons. There is a solar beam weapon if you are in New Game Plus, which is equivalent to the one that is installed on the Starborn Guardian. There is a solar torpedo, which is equivalent to the one on the Starborn Guardian, but a little more aggressive and a little more bursty. All weapons come in two, most weapons come in two variations. There's the X series for Starborn players, and the M series for pre-Starborn players, those that haven't gone through New Game Plus. All weapons also come in 10 ranks, which unlock at various levels. The lowest level weapon, the Mark I version, will unlock for the mortal weapons at level 45, and then that continues to level 126 at NG10 for the most powerful weapons. So, a lot of time will be involved in unlocking everything if you are playing on a new playthrough. For those of you playing on existing characters that are already at NG10 plus, you may start this mod with everything already unlocked. Don't forget that there was a lot of effort that went into unlocking them if you played them from scratch. Starting out at high level doesn't mean that just because you have access to all of the most powerful versions, that it is an overpowered system. Not to mention, we haven't even talked about space scaling yet. However, for all weapons, there are multiple flips to change the appearance of the weapon with the same performance and same statistics. So if you want your ship weapons to look a certain way, you can make that happen. And you no longer have to sacrifice the appearance of your ship just to get the performance that you want. This is true for every classification of ship part that DarkStar modifies and supplies, including shields, whether they be top or side mount. It includes reactors, where you can get large and small variations of every reactor out there, and grav drives, where you can also get large and small variations, all with the same statistics. So if you want a Class C grav drive, it no longer means that you have to have a giant grav drive on your ship. You can if you wish. You can even have a giant Class A grav drive. Does not matter. With that, you could conceptually replace each individual system on, say, the Frontier with a DarkStar equivalent weapon in appearance that has far superior stats, fly the Frontier with DarkStar's power. So now we're going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to show you a bunch of clips of different combat where you can see the scaling that takes place in DarkStar. Before we do, let me do a brief explanation. Enemies are scaled across the galaxy based on the world that they spawn on and the positional markers where they were placed by the person that created that space. That includes Bethesda creating the points of interest and mod authors creating their own points of interest. As the NPC is placed, they choose which NPC is placed. For example, if they are building a Crimson Fleet outpost, they could place a Crimson Fleet Ravager. I'm not changing that. It will still be a Ravager. And the Ravager will always scale to a slightly lower level than the more powerful versions of the Crimson Fleet, like a Crimson Fleet Captain. Same can be said for every other faction out there. Spacers, for example. There's the generic Spacer, which will always be the weakest, and the Spacer Titan, which will always be the most powerful from the vanilla game. Now, you will still see variation in levels between those NPCs, as appropriate. Creatures and critters and alien life will level based on the world that they're spawned on. The lower level of the world, the lower level the alien life. The higher level of the world, the higher level the alien life. The more brutal encounters in the game just got a lot more brutal. If it is a Terramorph, it's probably going to be nearly twice your level in some cases. The Cataxi creatures, the Gribdala, there's a whole subset of creatures that are special to certain quests. They got their own scaling applied to them. But they also come in level tiers that the base game calculates, hey, I should spawn a creature of this tier. And in the default game, that would have meant like a level 25 creature or a level 30 or 35, what have you. DarkStar respects those tiers and simply says, well, instead of that tier leading to a level 35, the level 35 tier now leads to a creature that is 0.85 times the player level, or 85% of the player level, or whatever the scaling I chose was. So everything in the game now scales as a percentage of your level. That means when you level, they level. Good luck. This level scaling includes ship AI. The majority of ship AI in the game was updated to scale to the player level. This does slightly affect their capabilities in space. However, all ships in the game are still limited by the ships in the game. DarkStar, as of yet, has made no attempt to alter vanilla NPC ships to make them more powerful. I did, however, add a perk to the game that is automatic and applied to you, that if you were fighting a ship that is much higher level than you, or much higher level than normal, then there is a scaling damage shift to give them the power that they deserve. Now, this isn't too dramatic, but I will warn you, in our playtesting, if you were not flying a ship with at least DarkStar parts, you were not likely to survive high-level encounters. But you can absolutely expect to fly into a system and see ships beyond level 100. If you are level 300, you can even encounter ships that are level 290 to 300. Best of luck to you. Now, here are some clips that I will close the video out on that will show you what combat can be like with DarkStar. Peace.